so everybody knows, we're going to be also this particular episode is going to be simulcast on YouTube by HolyFaith Media. So we're going to be getting into that in 1 second, but I wanted to point something out that I think is important as far as, we listen to a lot of people. We want people to understand we're not just a couple of blowhards. We listen, okay? We pay attention. That's one of the reasons why we're doing this show, because we think we have something to say, but we look to others for their ideas too. A lot of people who are on the same page with. I want to give a shout out to Matt Walsh, okay? And Matt Walsh has a lot of followers on Facebook and YouTube. He's talking our language, okay? But Matt Walsh made a good point. I came across a video the other day of him giving a speech at the Young Americans Foundation. This was back in 2016. And just to give it to you in a nutshell, he said, "I hate being called a social conservative." And he explained that by saying, "I'm a big issue conservative." Okay, and what he meant by that is all of the social issues the Democrats like to play down. They don't like to talk about them too much. They don't like to talk about abortion too much or gay marriage. They just want it to be settled, and that's it. Let's talk about taxes. Let's talk about climate change. Let's talk about the border. But here's the point. Those are the biggest issues for the Democrats. That's why we need to be big issue conservatives and tackle those issues, and don't let them just dismiss those issues or dismiss you as saying you're a social conservative. No, Joe and a lot of other people, and that's why I'm giving a shout out to Matt Walsh. We are big issue conservatives. That's why we're on this show, because the cultural battle is what needs to be won, and then the politics will fall in line. Okay. Having said that,
and also,
go ahead, Joe.
One more housekeeping item. Next week, we will be streaming from HolyFaith Media's site on YouTube live. He's streaming it right now simultaneously from our Facebook page. But next week, we will be streaming from YouTube, and we will post the content both on our blog, on our Facebook page, and on our personal pages.
Absolutely.
So you can catch us on Facebook, and the information will be on Facebook if you want to see it live on HolyFaith Media. Very simple. Just go into Google, put in HolyFaith Media.
It'll pop right up.
And you could comment, and we'll respond to all comments, because that basically is a big part of the show as well.
Excellent, excellent. So welcome back to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pacillo is always joined by Joe Reciniello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach. So I said a couple of months ago, I said with the left, you're serving it up, Joe. They're serving it up on a platter. It's a big steak. Say, well, what are we going to talk about? Don't worry about it. The left has given us plenty to talk about. So this week is chock full of things, which is a big fat ribeye with the baked potato and the bottle of Jordan Cab on your table. And we're ready to just dive into this meal that they're serving up, starting with the Democratic debate. Let's give a quick shout out. Joe joining us from Brooklyn. What's happening, Joe?
Joseph Campo.
All right. So yeah. What's going on? What's going on here?
Well, obviously, we all know that there were some debates this week. Just to break it down, if anyone didn't see them, there were two debates, both of which were in Miami. There were 10 candidates in each night, and they basically laid out, I guess, their platform initially. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of fighting, just basically initially just kind of laying out what they basically stand for. I just want to go down the list of few of those things that were discussed in both nights, and then I'm going to basically unleash Pacillo on you, and then we're going to have a little conversation. So basically, these are some of the things that were discussed on the two evenings that they spoke. We're going to have a borderless nation. We're going to have abortion for female transgenders. They used the word Latinx, had to look that one up, didn't know what that was.
I thought it was, I did, and I found out I wasn't the only one. About 6 shows ago, about a month and a half ago, I called it Latinx.
Yeah, Latinx.
Okay, and I heard somebody call it Latinx, so I felt like, all right, I'm not a dummy.
That's
I'm not
gender-neutral Latino.
Right, yeah, because you can't use Latino or Latina.
So you're a Latinx.
You're a Latinx.
That's new. Universal child health care, free college, student debt cancellation. By the way, that's 1.6 trillion with a T. They're just going to eradicate that.
Right.
Free healthcare for everybody. Use of windmills for energy.
Except in Hyannisport in Massachusetts, because Ted Kennedy, when he was alive, was opposed to having windmills in his backyard. But go ahead.
The bad use of the Spanish language by Beto O'Rourke. The ending of private health care for, I think, was at 118 million people?
No, it's 180 million
Okay.
Americans who have private health insurance.
And last but not least, unrestricted abortion access.
Oh, Joe, that's a shock. The unrestricted abortion access? I mean, are the Democrats, what's going on with them? I didn't expect at all that they were going to say that. So let's pick this apart.
So basically, that was the litany of some of the ideas that were thrown around. I just want to throw one more idea, and obviously this is an idea of a very big government. I want to quote something from, you might be surprised by this. This is President Bill Clinton. January 23rd, 1996, Bill Clinton addressed the country in his State of the Union, and this is what he said. Now, this is 1996. This isn't 1776, 1996. He says, the end of big government is over.
Oh, no, the era.
The era.
The era,
yeah. The era of big government is over.
Mm-hmm.
Well, doesn't appear to
Doesn't appear that way. But remember, let's put it in historical context, okay? You had Ronald Reagan, okay, by most accounts. Obviously, Ronald Reagan was a very successful president. Ronald Reagan was elected as a reaction to the failure of Jimmy Carter, okay? He crushed the liberal, Walter Mondale would be considered a moderate now.
Oh,
but at the time, Walter Mondale was your liberal Democrat. Papa Bush destroyed Michael Dukakis, okay, who was a far left Democrat at the time. Bill Clinton, in fairness to him, and the Democrats kind of regrouping, formed the Democratic Leadership Council, okay, back in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, to become a more moderate party. People were tired. They listened to Reagan. They believed him when he said, government is the problem. The government is not the solution. And the Democrats won. Clinton won. You can leave out all the other stuff about Ross Perot and why Clinton got elected. He won, okay? He portrayed himself as a moderate. 1996, he said the same thing, okay? And for the most part, okay, Bill Clinton did kind of govern from the middle, okay?
Oh, absolutely.
Now, I will say, I will credit Newt Gingrich with a lot of that. In other words, the Republican Revolution of 1994, where they retook the House for the first time in 40 years. That was Newt Gingrich's doing, Rush Limbaugh and the media really forming that movement, okay? But Bill Clinton got it. That's my point. Bill Clinton got it, okay? And he probably, he's still a liberal, but he figured we can't be doing everything, okay? So fast forward 23 years, okay? Let's get into whether or not the era of big government is over, because not only is it not over, the government, if these people have their way, and if you and I and the rest of us don't go out and vote against them, okay? Notice how I didn't say vote for Donald Trump, even though that's who we're going to vote for, okay? But we need primarily to go and vote against them. We're done. We are done. Joe just read the list. Let's start with the borderless nation. Borderless nation. You don't have a country anymore. Sorry, you cannot convince Joe or me or any of our viewers or anybody who has any sort of sanity, all right, that a borderless nation is a good thing. We have a right to it. I would say the government has not just a right to it. It's a responsibility. It's a responsibility. It's your duty. And what did they say? We're talking about the Democrats. What did they all say? They said they want to decriminalize coming across the border.
Well, they don't want to have a solution, and don't expect a solution, because they will not give Donald Trump credit. They're not interested in these people. We've said this 3 months ago on the show. This issue is, to be honest with you, a sore that works for them.
Right.
They could care less. I can recall saying, do you think Nancy Pelosi cares about these people?
Mm-mm.
No way.
No.
She cares about their vote, and she basically cares about the issue so she could bang a drum.
Right.
If Donald Trump came up with the perfect solution, by the way, this is a topic that we should come up with a solution on. There is no reason why. This is a perfect example of the dysfunction of our government.
Mm-hmm.
This is not ideology. There could be a compromise here. And frankly, both sides should be able to come together.
But didn't they prove they're not willing to work with Trump? He was willing to give a pathway to citizenship to 1.8 million illegals, and take care of DACA and everything else. And all he said was, I don't want to be in this position as a nation 20 years down the road, so we're going to build a wall. We're going to build a wall. All right, and that's it. And because that's all that's been going on. And the thing is that what the left hates more than anything is that Republicans in this case actually learned something from history. Ronald Reagan got stabbed in his back by the Democrats. Ronald Reagan gave amnesty to 3 million illegals with the promise that we were going to secure the border. And what did they do? All right, we'll secure the border. The amnesty got handed down. 3 million illegals were given amnesty, and the border was never secure. Where are we a couple decades later? Right in the same spot. The border needs to be secured, but remember, there's a couple things going on. We do it, all right, and most of you do it, but we all have to really open our ears to what Democrats say. They know that on their central issues, that's why I started talking about big issue conservative. When it comes to all their cultural agenda, they need to be able to get into power in order to enforce that. And they know they're not going to get people like us and people who would disagree with us, but who are more independent, don't affiliate, let's say, necessarily with a political party. They're open-minded, they're practical, they're less ideological, and they're kind of practical. They'll vote for Donald Trump, they'll vote for Hillary Clinton. Like, they could go either way, okay? You're not going to get those people to buy this far left agenda. You're not going to do it. So what do? They need a borderless nation so that they can import a new voting class. And the reason why I say we have to open our ears, what else did they propose? They also proposed lowering the voting age to 16. Why don't you just tell us that you need to rig an election by bringing in illegals, giving them amnesty, and letting them vote?
Because they're not going to win.
That's my point. They're not going to win, and they know it.
Going to win.
But at the expense of us, and for political power, they refuse to secure a border through which people are coming that are harming American citizens. They are derelict in their duty, Joe, to protect the people of the United States. They talk about morality. Nancy Pelosi talks about morality.
And then
all right,
slaughter a child in the 3rd trimester. That's why I say, like, take that morality argument, throw it in the sewer.
By the way, I just want to give a quick, I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is an important one, all right? I want to give a quick shout out. My man Esteban checking in from over there in Queens. Esteban's a millennial, doesn't agree with me on everything, but you want to know what? Open-minded young man, 23, 24 years old, listening on our Frontline with Joe and Joe, chiming in. And the bottom line is that I've told him right to his face. I know Esteban, right? I said, you are the future of America because you're not in an ideological lockstep with and following the herd the way the left wants. Very inquisitive young man. Good. And I just want to say there's a lot of people out there like him. Keep asking questions, Esteban, and keep fighting, all right? And thank you for joining the Frontline with Joe and Joe. So I just wanted to give that shout out real quick.
Well, I mean, when you look at a lot of this stuff, if you're an adult, and we've talked about this on other shows, I mean, how much is this going to cost? Oh. We all know. Listen, I want healthcare for everyone. I have kids in daycare. I don't even want to tell you how much I pay a month. Free daycare, great. Sounds good to me. You're going to end student debt? Great.
Well, that sounds great.
But where is this going to go? Where are you going to get this money? And this is where I think they take people to be stupid, actually. Because let's be honest, everything in life costs money, and it comes from someplace.
Right.
I actually heard today on like one of the pundits, they were talking about the universal health care. Basically what they said is, yeah, we're talking about taking away private health care, but you're free. This is, I wanted to pat myself on the back while I listened to it because I just said it like 2 weeks ago. But you're free to get a supplemental plan. I just talked about that. That's what Canada does.
Why do I need a supplemental plan?
Because the plan is not that great. So what does that mean? It means that the rich who can afford it after you tax people at 55% can have great health care, and the middle, so you figure the middle to the lower class, say 75% of us, basically you're just throwing a crumb.
Right.
And that's the universal health care.
Well, I know it was further down your list. Let's get into the universal health care. You talk about the cost, okay? And the cost is important, all right? But I want to talk about the overall agenda behind why Bernie Sanders is so hell-bent, because none of them have any solutions that involve the government getting out of the healthcare industry. It's always a matter of how we can get the government more involved. Well, when you get the government more involved, the cost isn't coming down. And then the government says, well, then we need to take control. But here was my question. And it's a very simple question from a dumb idiot like me and Joe sitting here in North Jersey. Mr. Sanders, is my 80-year-old mother, is she going to be able to get a hip replacement surgery? Or are you going to give her a pill, send her home so she could die? I want you to answer that question, Senator Sanders. And at the same time, when you're denying my mother that hip replacement surgery because you say she's too old and we need the money for other things, do those other things include abortion for any woman who wants one that taxpayers through this wonderful system of yours are going to have to pay for? And does it also include cosmetic surgery for those people who want to change their genders?
Probably yes.
That would be my guess. That would be my guess. You'll deny older people the health care that they need, that you promised them, because we don't have enough money. But you're going to take that money and you're going to give it to all these other people for things that the American people do not want to pay for.
And they're already doing that in Iowa. They pay for transgender surgery, and we're all paying for abortions right now.
That's right. We pay. We got $500,000 of our tax dollars go into Planned Parenthood, and they'll say, yeah, but that goes for women's health. No, it doesn't. It goes to kill babies. The $500 million a year goes to Planned Parenthood, and the very, 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 very small percentage of their business, or a minuscule percentage, goes for anything outside abortion. They are in the baby killing business, and we pay for it, like it or not. We pay for it. What else is on? No,
but I would just like to invite people to think for a moment of the financials. Think for a moment of those things that I just laid out. Think where the source of money, because if anyone tells you, again, I listened to the pundits today, anyone who tells you that they're just going to tax the rich, they're just going to tax the banks, seriously, is lying to you.
Right to your face.
I am not a rich person, so I'm not in that crew. So I'm just telling you, they are lying to you. Now, let me throw another angle. If you're a person that you could barely pay your bills, you're barely paying your bills, you're barely making your car payment, you're barely paying your mortgage, and they all of a sudden tax you for all these things at around 50%, 55%, how are you making it?
Right.
You think the bank that you have a 30-year mortgage is going to say, well, you know.
Well, we'll blame Senator Sanders. You don't have to worry. We'll give you a pass.
That. You owe us $3,000.
Pay us when you have it.
Pay us $1,700.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work that way. Yeah.
Wrong.
Right.
Wrong. So this is where I want the people to put on the adult hat for a moment. Think about universal health care for what's it called? What it would cost. Cancellation of student debt, $1.6 trillion. Free college education, universal child care, all these costs. By the way, the government doesn't do it well either. So tack on some additional costs, because private companies do those things much better than the government. So where is this money going to come from? Oh, we're just going to tax Wall Street.
Well, that's all Elizabeth Warren.
Full of crap.
That's all Elizabeth Warren says is we're going to get it. We're going to get it from the banks. We're going to get it from Wall Street. I'll tell you what. We said this before. Listen, get Roman. Okay, if you really have some balls, get Roman and kill every person in this country, every family who has a net worth of over $10 million. Kill them all. And confiscate all their bank accounts, all their stocks, all their bonds, all their property, everything else, and kill them. And leave their bodies in the middle of Times Square and say, we're getting Roman on these people. You'll fund the government for about 9 months. Don't tell us you're getting the money from the rich. You're not getting the money. You're selling this the same way, Josie, this is why people have to look at history. The same way they sold the personal income tax in this country, which Joe and I are going to do a show on the evil of the personal income tax and why it needs to be repealed. Not a conversation for tonight, but how did they sell it? We're only going to tax the rich for the purposes of funding the war. Okay? In other words, to ramp up our military in the event we got into World War I, it's only going to be on the rich. Fast forward 20 years later, everybody's paying income tax. Everybody's paying income tax to the point now they'll have you convinced that unless they tax us at the rate they are and in the form of a personal income tax, that the country's going to fall apart. That if Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer don't have more of our money to spend, well, the country's going to fall apart. Because you people, you don't build this nation. You don't run the economy. We do. They'll try to convince you of that. They really will. I mean, you can put them all in the same soup. So you could put the universal child care, free college, canceling the debt, free health care. Yeah. And you know what they say? It really makes me want to punch them right in the face. I mean, it really does. I'm sorry, because sometimes their answers are just out. I mean, their answers, generally speaking, are annoying, all right? But sometimes they're extra annoying. Why do people always talk about how we're going to pay for it? Because things cost money. That's why.
Yeah,
Everything costs money. Don't you get it? In other words, that's why we say, how are you going to pay for it? Because I don't want to give you any more of my money. Joe doesn't want to give you any more of his money. All the good people out there, we're tired of giving you our money, but you want to keep taking more, and you keep saying the same. We're promising you all these luxuries. You're not. Mr. Sanders says you're not going to have to pay co-pays. You're not going to. Well, Bernie, listen. You might be appealing to those people who are less informed. You might be appealing on an emotional level, but people, most of whom, the majority of Americans have a brain cell in their head. You, Mr. Sanders, by the grace of God, will never become president of the United States. You just don't get it. America is not a socialist nation. Even liberal Democrats do not want socialism. I have problems with them in other areas, okay? But as far as it goes, they don't want state ownership of the means of production. They're not reading Das Kapital and the Communist Manifesto, okay? They don't look at Che Guevara as a hero. They look at him as a murderer that he is, okay? That's another thing. De Blasio went down to, did you hear about that? De Blasio, who shouldn't even be on the stage at these Democratic debates, because we are talking about Democratic debates. He went down to Miami, and he's given us, he pulled the Beto O'Rourke. He pulled the Beto, and he said something in Spanish, turned out to be a communist slogan from La Revolucion in 1960. All right. And the Cubans, rightfully, got pissed off, because what do you get in South Florida? You get conservative Cubans, all right, whose grandfathers were killed by Fidel Castro and Che Guevara. So De Blasio, sorry. There was keep going.
No, but I mean,
because I'm starting, my insides are starting to bust up a little bit.
The thing that I like, one of my takeaways when we were talking about the show before we got on is, if they were trying to basically appeal to the independent, because keep this in mind, there are two tribes in this country. Sadly, we're now a country of tribalism, and people don't listen. And sadly, most people don't think for themselves. So if they were the people who determine the president, this is a fact. It's the independent. You have to make your case to the independent. That's why Florida and Ohio are the two most vital states. There has not been a president who has been elected who has lost both of them in I don't know how many years. So the way to win, let's just talk about winning. Let's not talk about ideology. Let's not even talk about right and wrong. Let's talk about winning. Mm-hmm. You have to convince the independent. And I'm going to say right now, as an objective person, that litany that I just ran through and those 2 nights of discussions, there is not one independent, free-thinking person that is going to sit here and say, wow, you got me on that one.
Yeah, I'm sold.
No.
It's like,
way.
No way. It's like buying a Honda. Remember back in the day, it's like, you walk into the place and the little guy, the salesman, and the person looks at the Honda and says, I'll take it. That's not happening with your agenda. Nobody wants it. Nobody's taking it. Okay? Here's a good case in point. You had, in fairness to the Democrats, they're not all in lockstep on everything, but it's all part of their whole swamp. So the question was put in the Democratic debate, which of you will take away the health care of 180 million people and provide them with this universal health care?
Did the mic go out?
No, the mic didn't go out. And if I remember correctly, okay, because I didn't want to throw up my Chinese food that I had that night, so I really didn't watch the Democratic debate. I caught the clips afterwards, because, again, Joe went through everything that we knew they were going to say anyway. But interesting, that it was Bernie Sanders, and I think it might have been Kamala Harris, okay, that said, yes, they will take 180 million people who have private insurance. They'll take that insurance away from them, and they'll put them into this government system. Now, I brought this up for a reason based on what you just said. The independent voter or the blue-collar Democrat in Ohio, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, with union jobs. See, Tim Ryan knows a little bit about those people. He's a congressman from, I don't like Tim Ryan, but he's a congressman from Youngstown, okay, in Ohio, all right? You're going to tell those guys. Now, these are people that voted for Obama probably twice. Okay. You're going to go tell those union guys. We've dealt with union guys our whole life. Okay. I still pay dues to the union. And the bottom line is this. You're going to tell those union guys that you're taking away, yes, their Cadillac plan that they negotiated with their employer.
The teachers,
you're going to tell all those people you're taking away their health care, okay? The private union people and the public union people, okay? When they get sick, guess what happens? 80, 85, 9 years old, doesn't matter. My mother gets the health care she needs because my mother paid for her insurance and continues to pay for her insurance. You think my mother wants to go into a government plan so that now she's 80, next year when she's 82, and these people, God forbid, win this election, and they're able to do something like this, you think my mother's going to go and vote for them? Oh, I can imagine my mother. Oh, come on, I got to go out and vote for Kamala Harris because she's going to take away my insurance, and she's going to put me in the government plan, and it's going to be so beautiful. My mother knows she'll be dead. My mother knows. My mother's an off-the-boat Italian, all right? My mother knows, okay, that the bottom line is that's a loser. My mother, who has voted Democrat, will never vote, because she's a union person, she will never vote for anything like that. If, like you said, if they were smart, I don't know what they're at. I thought these were smart people.
No, but that's
how are you going to go to these people in the Midwest, say, we're going to take away your insurance and put you in a government plan?
But this is why I'm saying, for the people who are listening who may disagree with us on a lot of things, put on your adult objective hat for a moment. Does this make sense? I actually almost think, do you really think you're going to win by saying these things? Even those who are trying to say that they're moderate, Mayor Pete, Biden, even Ryan, they're getting pulled to the left.
Well, get on Ryan. Okay, Ryan is portraying himself as that blue collar. I'll get those people to vote for me. I'm a conservative. He's not. He's a radical. Up till 2015, he was pro-life. After 2000, I was an article I read today. After 2015, he sold his soul to the devil so that he can get on the national stage. And the devil, in this case, is Planned Parenthood. So Tim Ryan caved on that. I mean, what is he going to do? Go to all those people? What about the pro-life, blue-collar person who has voted Democrat in the past and says, well, why'd you change your position? Well, something miraculous happened that all of a sudden you decided that it wasn't baby slaughter because that's what you decided. That's what you knew before. Right, well, exactly. He doesn't care. Again, I told Joe before the show, I watched Tim Ryan this morning on Sunday Morning Futures with Maria Bartiromo. This guy wants to be president. I gave the comparison. I think you liked it. I gave a comparison. When Donald Trump knows he's going to get a tough question, Donald Trump acts like a man. And what I mean by that, he breathes. All right. And then he's prepared. He knows he's going to get a tough question. And he's prepared. And he gives an answer. Here's Tim Ryan with Maria Bartiromo like this. That's what he was looking like. He's like looking all around because he knows Maria Bartiromo is going to ask him some tough questions. Okay. And he's going to have to answer them. He's like, I was like, you want to be president of the United States, brother? You cannot look like a deer in the headlights. And you know what you looked like this morning? A deer in the headlights. But he's another one. He's on the far left. The Democratic Party is the far left now. There is nobody who could buck them in any single way. Let's say a moderate Democrat who we wouldn't agree with comes across and says, no, I am pro-choice, but I'm for restrictions on abortion, not up till birth. He's never going to make it. You wouldn't be on that stage. You wouldn't be on the stage. You wouldn't be on the stage. And another thing too. Let's keep going. Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg is not a moderate. I don't care if he's from the Midwest. Pete Buttigieg is not a moderate. Pete Buttigieg imbibed the ideas of his communist father, Joe Buttigieg, who was an endowed chair in Notre Dame, okay, who wrote, who basically was a Gramsci scholar. And if anybody knows anything about 20th century communism, they know about Antonio Gramsci, all right, and his targeting of all the cultural institutions so that you could attain this let's say hegemony over society, basically where everybody thinks alike and thinks like communists. That's who Gramsci was, okay? And bottom line is that's what Pete Buttigieg learned his whole life. Pete Buttigieg is not a moderate. Forget about him being gay. Don't talk about just politically. He's not a moderate. He says that it should be up to the woman whether or not it's a human being in the 8th, 9th month or when the baby's laying on a table. It doesn't matter to him. Okay, he's for a borderless society, a borderless nation. No, so he's not a moderate in that regard. He didn't go so far as to say, I'm going to take away the health care of 180 million people. But listen, given the opportunity, you're going to trust that he wouldn't? Do you? Because I don't trust him. I still say he's going to be number 2 on the ticket, by the way.
I
I still
agree.
say he's going to be number 2 on the ticket.
I think it's Warren and Mayor Pete. That's my bet.
Yep, I think so too. And I think they go down. I think they did an experiment. I watched it on YouTube. I watched a YouTube experiment about a year ago. They took all the air out of a room because they were trying to prove that 2 objects, regardless of the object's weights, fall at the same rate because of gravity, right? And they put a feather and they put a big metal ball. And funny enough, when you take all the air out of the room, they both fall at the same rate. The only thing that would fall faster than that would be a Warren Buttigieg ticket. The only thing, okay, that would fall faster than that feather or that metal ball would be that ticket, okay? You will get crushed. You will make George McGovern look like a success for having won 1 state, okay? So go ahead, knock yourself out. Knock yourself out. Donald Trump is going to eat your lunch. And not because I'm the biggest Trump fan. I'm stating a political reality to you people. Okay? You are extreme. People don't agree with you. Joe and Joe are here to tell you, and many, many others are out there in social media telling you, you're not bullying us anymore and shaming us and calling us haters and deplorables. Look to Hillary Clinton to find out what happens to you as a presidential candidate when you call half the nation deplorable. Go look at her candidacy and how that went for her before you want to insult the rest of us instead of, like you said, trying to come in the middle. Many issues we can't come into the middle with them on, abortion, gay marriage, things like that. But there are some issues we can talk to them about. Immigration
should be one of them. We should be, and I think Trump would actually give them. I do. I actually, if they went there in good faith, I do think he would give them some things, but he's also going to have, that's what a negotiation is.
Right.
That's not an ideological issue. We can't agree on it because they'll never, ever, ever give him anything.
No.
Anything.
They can't. Because to work with him recognizes his legitimacy as the president of the United States. And when confronted with that, they say, well, if we treat him as a legitimate president on the issue of the border, then we have to treat him as a legitimate president when it comes to the judges he wants to appoint. And we don't want his judges. Again, this is about culture. The judges are the ones who allow this cultural rot to keep going through. And Trump stands in the middle because, and he's got the Senate on his side, he could get the judges through. To legitimize him by negotiating on the border, you just use that as an example, the border, means that he is he represents the co-equal branch of government, which is the executive branch, and he is the legitimate president of the United States. That's why they spent 2.5 years talking about Russia and all that, because they wanted to delegitimize him this is my opinion, but I think I'm right, for the purpose to thwart his ability to appoint judges who are sane, not Elena Kagan, not Sotomayor, not Ruth Bader Ginsburg, not Stephen Breyer, but people who have sanity. Okay, people who think rationally about the Constitution and value the Constitution. So you're right. You could disagree. I've heard Nancy Pelosi say it. Well, we'll work together when we can, and we'll respectfully disagree when we can't work together. That's fine. But they won't do that. No. Not with Donald Trump. And I'm going to tell you something. When and what's also, aside from their nonsensical agenda, the gaffes are just going to keep coming. Please tell the audience what Julian Castro said?
Well,
in case you missed it,
abortion for female transgenders.
What does that mean? And nobody questioned them on it. Nobody questioned them.
Seriously, is that even possible?
No, it's not. That's the whole point. It's like this guy. Here's the left.
He should actually just been walked. They should just put the mic down.
Listen, I talked to my man Joe Campo out in Brooklyn before the show, right? And he said we pictured it like, as soon as he said that, it should have been like a scene out of Austin Powers where Dr. Evil hits a button and Julian Castro goes out. All right, and then everybody kind of moves this way, and then they get to the next one who's now very fearful because it's. Here's the thing: I've had to hear the left my whole life. Sarah Palin's going to be next in line, and then she'll have her finger on the nuclear codes. This is a guy that doesn't know basic biology. You wanted his fingers on the nuclear codes?
He's playing you.
Right.
He knows. He's just playing this harp, and everyone sadly is listening as if this is a valid thing.
Right.
Let's put the adult hat on. Could we all just come to reality? Latinx.
Right.
What the hell is that?
Right.
What is a gender neutral Latino?
Right.
What is that?
What does that mean?
What does that mean?
Well, but this is what when you could get away with. This is why we always talk about the need to take back the culture. If you've convinced a good portion, not everybody, because they're not convincing you, they're not convincing us, and they never will. When you convince them that there's no moral order, when you convince them that there's no natural order, when you convince them there's no social order, it's just what you feel in the moment. You don't have to adapt your life to anything outside yourself. God forbid you say God, okay, or the moral law, or the natural law, like which basically would state that men are men and women are women, and that's how you're born, okay? You're assigned your sex at birth, okay? When you're trying to convince people of this, okay, and they're imbibing it, like then to them it makes all the sense in the world. So if you'd said to let's say a person who doesn't know any better, you know what, we're going to cancel your student debt. You got 40, 50 grand in debt, we're going to cancel that debt. They're going to go, great. They're not going to ask any questions. You've destroyed.
They're not going to do that. You see,
no. I would say this, Joe. No, this is what we talk about all the time about the culture. They want to sell, especially young people. They want to sell them the sex, drugs, and rock and roll culture because when you're addicted to sex, any kind of sex, but when you're immersed in this sexual liberation and this lifestyle that they are always promoting, they are offering you all sorts of drugs. Don't think it's going to stop with legalized marijuana. It's going to keep going and going and going because we know what the left is all about. They want you oversexed and they want you stupefied. Okay, and they want you that way so that you keep voting for them. So that anything that they want to do, they're just going to do. What are you going to do? Complain? And they're just going to turn around and say, but we give you abortion. We give you contraception. You can have all the sex you want. You can get high all you want. I'm sitting on the street in New York the other day because I work in the city. Now I'm sitting on the street and two kids are sitting there, a girl and a guy, and they're both getting high right on the street. A year ago, they would have been arrested.
That all the time.
They would have been arrested. I remember back in the day in Newark, if you were smoking a joint on a corner, you can forget it. In other words, every car that went by, you're like this, you're running into the playground, you're gonna go finish it. That's what kids used to do. Now it's just right out there. De Blasio's not arresting anybody for smoking pot. And my point in this is that's the way they want you. They want you. E. Michael Jones over at Culture Wars magazine says it all the time. If you are docile, which is what they want, which is what these oligarchs, which are represented right now by the left in America, the hard left, they want you docile because it's a matter of political control. He's the one that I've heard say, and I happen to agree with it, if you argue or if you want to make an argument against it, go right ahead, is that abortion, homosexuality, contraception, all of it is central to sexual liberation. Without those things, you're not sexually liberated, and it is through sexual liberation, or sexual liberation is a form of political control. And how do you do that? Just give people what you've convinced them that they want. In this case, sex and drugs, and then they'll do whatever you want. You think they're going to care if they...
Or they lie to you and say, basically, you're going to have free college, or we're going to get you out of your hole that you put yourself in, that you owe $300,000 and you have a $40,000 a year job.
Right.
That is a lie.
It's all lies.
Life does not work that way.
Mm-hmm.
They'll just redistribute that debt to everybody else, and they're going to take it out of your paycheck. It's like if you owe somebody money, what do? They take it out of your paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
If you owe, like, say, child support, you don't pay your child support. They garnish your wages.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes right out automatically.
Right.
So this is what people have to use their brains.
Right.
Like I just sat there and I just can't even believe what's being said. And people are just listening as if this is real.
But you have to remember, and I know you do, but you have to remember something also. When you have a willing and complicit media, then you could get away with all this. You think anybody's going to remember in a month or two that Julian Castro is promising abortions for transsexual men? Or I told you before, I get confused. A man who thinks he's a woman, who gets pregnant.
And then wants an abortion.
Right, who wants an abortion. Then it didn't dawn on this guy that men can't get pregnant. But even that aside, you think 2 months that anybody's going to remember that? No, because Chris Matthews and Rachel Maddow and Chuck Todd and MSNBC and CNN and the rest of them, they're just going to let him get away with it. Say, well, he was misunderstood. No, he wasn't misunderstood. It was a blatant attempt to pander, and he got his foot put right in his mouth. He put his own foot right in his mouth. But because because they have the media on their side, it isn't. Donald Trump won the election last time. When you look at the votes, the margin of victory, let's say in those main states, okay, it was by about 100,000 votes. If the media was fair in this country, he would have trounced her. Even more so in terms of the electoral college numbers, okay? He probably would have won by a much bigger
that's why
margin.
that's what he said. If it wasn't for Twitter, he never would have won the election.
That's right. That's why they want him, but that's why they want him off Twitter. That's why they keep criticizing. But guess what? He plays you people like a fiddle. He goes, look, Ronald Reagan didn't have the technology. Ronald Reagan didn't have Twitter. What Ronald Reagan used to do was go right over their head. He knew what they were all about. Why do I have to go through the filter of the media? I'll go right over your head. What does Donald Trump do with Twitter? Goes right over their head, and they can't stand it. You want to know why? Because he won, and he will continue to win. They're toast. This agenda you just talked about, I don't see it.
Oh, well, like I said, the independents are the people who determine the election, and you didn't get one. And I'll be honest with you, Tom Perez, you're the head of the DNC. I've been saying this to my wife for a long time. He's got to go.
His head's going to roll.
He does it. Oh, he's got to. He does not understand the American people. That litany of issues gets you one place, second place in the presidency.
That's right.
You're not winning.
Let's give a quick shout out, Joe. Heidi's joining in. Vinny from Hoboken joining in. Sean Murray. Vinny liked my Bernie Sanders impersonation. Could you do it again, please? In a minute, Vin. In a minute, I promise. I'll have something that Bernie Sanders said, and I'll make sure I talk like Senator Bernie Sanders. All right, Joe Campbell's joining us. My wife's joining us. Hi, baby. And a whole bunch of other people over here. Facebook Live, and we're also being simulcasted live. HolyFaith Media over on YouTube. You're with the Frontline with Joe and Joe, and we are deep into the breach with our brothers and sisters. What's the next atrocity?
We're going to go around the world, and I think these subjects are going to give you some moments to think about, like some of the things we've talked about in the past, if you thought that we're just conspiracy nuts or basically like this will never happen. Because frankly, I think they're kind of, to be honest with you, I would say they're outright barbarous. And I just want to give you an example of what's going on out there. Like I've said on other shows, we try to find news items that aren't covered in the mainstream. That's what we discuss on this show. That's what we're all about, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So our first one after this lovely DNC debacle is going to come to you from the UK. Basically, what happened, this was last week and then it bled into this week. There was a woman, she was a Nigerian Catholic woman, she's in her 20s, and she's mentally disabled. And she got pregnant. The court was trying to force an abortion on her against her will. So basically the issue here is basically individual rights versus state rights, and obviously the state rights were usurping the individual rights. So she was pregnant, she wanted to have the child, and the state basically said, no, it's in your interest that we make you have an abortion. And it went to court, and she lost. And because I always say this, because it's important, names are important, the justice was Natalie Levin. Yes, Levin.
Levin, yeah.
Okay, so the judge rules against her. So it went to an appeals court this week, and thank God that they overturned Miss Levin's ruling, and this woman could have a child. Also, let me throw a couple facts at you. The woman was 22 months pregnant. So what does that mean in terms of what a child looks like? They always say it's a bunch of cells. Well, actually, it's not. A child at 22 months is usually about the size of a coconut. Also, the woman's mother said not only would she take care of her disabled child, she'd take care of the baby. So similar to the Alfie Evans situation that took place, you have a person, an adult, saying, I will take the child, I will take care of my daughter, don't worry about it. And the state is basically saying, no, I know better than you.
That kid will die.
And that is barbarous.
Well, let me ask you this. All those people in America that run Planned Parenthood and NARAL and the rest of it, I thought all you people were pro-choice, okay? This is a case where a woman, you could try to dehumanize her all you want by saying she's got the IQ of a 7 or 8 year old, okay, but her mother doesn't, okay, and she's pregnant, she's 22 weeks pregnant. So who has the choice? She says she wants the baby. The mother says she's ready to take care of the daughter and the baby. So
what's the problem?
I thought you people were pro-choice. Live and let live. Don't intrude. Are you going into her uterus the way you accuse pro-life people all the time? Leave my uterus alone. Well, you're allowing the state. You'd have no problem with the with the British government going into this woman's uterus to kill this woman's baby against this woman's will. and the will of her mother. Where's your pro-choice attitude? And let's get it straight, because they let the cat out of the bag many times, okay? Homosexual activist Dan Savage, okay, and others who have said, I'm not pro-choice. If I had my way, for 30 years in this country, women would be forced to have an abortion because he's a population control nut on top of being a homosexual activist nut, okay, and a pro-abortion nut. So the bottom line is they're showing their true colors. They love this. They love this Justice Natalie Levin. In other words, the state coming in. We talked about it with Charlie Gard. We talked about it with Alfie Evans. Okay. In other words, the state wants them, and this goes back to our earlier conversation about free healthcare. Beware. Remember in third grade, all the leftists were starting to infiltrate the public schools. And what did we learn? What's like the first thing you learn when you got like a little bit around the age of reason? Caveat emptor. Remember, buyer beware. I think Mr. Torsiello's class at First Avenue School in Newark. That's what caveat emptor. Buyer beware. Buyer beware. If you listen to Mr. Sanders.
That's for Vinny.
That's for Vinny. But this is what it leads to. And like Joe said, this isn't conspiracy theory.
This is real.
This is real.
Happening.
This is a judge. This is a justice on their or this was an appeals court. It wasn't their highest court because the highest court overturned.
The appeals court overturned Levin's rule.
Right, but she's a judge. She has power in that government. Okay, and she's saying that she's not pro-choice. In this case, the state can force the abortion.
So what's to stop this government, if we have universal health care, to say on a situation like this, say you have a child, by the way, that we're basically aborting Down syndrome children off the earth. 40% of Down syndrome children in America are being aborted.
Right.
I think I'm pretty sure it could be England. Don't quote me on it, but it's a country in Europe. It's 90%. I don't know. I don't want to say with certainty. I know it is a country in Europe. Anyway, I do know in America it's 40%.
Well, you're talking about Down syndrome. Well, Iceland.
Okay.
Yeah, we talked about. We said before that in Iceland they brag that they had the least amount of incidents of Down syndrome children because they killed them all.
Well, I mean, the point is, say, okay, this universal health care comes into play here, and you know, they have the medical technology, they can tell. So basically they say, we're not paying for you to have this child. So now they're forcing you to have an abortion. Because they're not, the health care isn't paying for it. Or like Joe said, your mother, who's 79 years old, the actuary basically says she's probably only going to live 5 more years. She needs triple bypass surgery. This is real.
Right.
This is happening.
Yep.
And we're telling you, we're not, they're saying you're just spreading fear.
No.
I'm telling you,
this
is happening. It's happening. In countries, it will happen here too if we allow it. It will. It will. And you see, this is, I've said this another time. I say it all the time. No one cares because it's not you.
Right.
But it might be.
Someday.
You see, this is because no one cares. All they care about is as far as their hand in front of their face. As soon as it's you, it's your mother.
Well, you know who's guilty of this? In other words, conservatives are guilty of this too. Because if conservatives were able to come to some sort of a compromise on the big issues, as we started out this show by talking about, you know, we're not social conservatives, we're big issue conservatives. Life and death is the biggest issue. A woman being forced to have an abortion by the state, that's a big issue. Okay, but you know where you're not going to hear these things discussed? The so-called savior of the conservative movement, Fox News. They're not taking this up. They'll give it some play. Tucker Carlson is the only one. He's the only one who tackles these bigger issues, okay? And the other ones will touch on them, but they're more like, Hannity's all about FBI corruption, which is all important and everything. Hannity's not getting into this stuff. Neither are some of the others, okay? They have as many leftists on Fox News as they do, let's say, conservatives. But talking about the conservatives, if you found a compromise on gay marriage, if you found a political compromise on abortion, all right, they're all for contraception, okay? Nobody talks about contraception anymore and the evil of contraception. You can forget about that. Fox News would make a deal in a minute. You know why? Because like you said, the hand in front of your face that you say they can't see beyond is this: money. Money. Why do we have to talk about these things? Why can't we just worry about the economy? Because that's what most people worry about anyway. I don't agree with that. I don't agree that the American people only worry about their jobs or only worry about money or only worry about how they're going to put food on the table. These issues matter to people. That's why We are growing, and that's why people who talk like us, who preceded us, that's why they're growing even exponentially. People, it's a lot of working class people too. It's not, we're not talking rich people, even though maybe some of you are rich. These issues are important. You want to know why that guy, that blue collar guy that Tim Ryan's trying to appeal to with his Cadillac plan he has through his union and everything else, he is worried about his paycheck. Don't you think he's worried about if his daughter goes out and gets pregnant and she wants to go have an abortion? You think he's gonna? You think that guy is gonna get a little pissed off if his daughter has an abortion and Planned Parenthood said, "Well, we didn't have to tell you"? You think he's gonna get upset? You think he wants this stuff? No, that guy and his wife, they don't want this stuff for their kids.
That's why you got to think.
Right. Use your God-given reason.
Use your brain.
And dissect all their arguments. Dissect them one by one. Because let's face it, these are smart people, but their arguments are they're easily confronted.
Well, they have holes.
Well, they're gaping holes.
Their arguments, first of all, they're not linear, and they have holes, and they're, to be honest with you, they're not true. All lies, when you present the truth to them, they fall apart.
Right.
They're not true.
But that's why don't they, Joe? Don't they fall back on emotion? See, when you confront someone with the truth, life begins at conception. That's a true statement. That's a fact. Okay, you can't get around that. So then all of a sudden it shifts to an emotional. You want to put women in jail. You want to jail doctors for 99 years. Well, if life begins at conception and you kill that life.
I don't want to put a woman in jail, but I'll go on record saying I want to put the doctor in jail.
Well, no,
you know better. You went
to
medical school.
Well, you're right about that. I will say that a woman, I've used this example before, she's the head of the, hold on to your stomach, she's the head of, or one of the leaders of the Satanist movement in America. She said flat out she got pregnant so she can go and have an abortion and offer her baby up to Satan. Now, in that case, you go to jail. If the law says that a human being or a child in the womb is recognized as a human being deserving of rights, and that woman deliberately gets pregnant so she can go and have an abortion, she goes to jail. Okay, I don't care what they say.
She should be in a
because, well, here's the thing too.
Sick.
She acknowledges that it's a baby in the womb, but she's an atheist Satanist, so I know that's kind of like crazy thing, but she's basically an atheist, calls herself a Satanist. My point is that no, we want to get back. We want to get back to a place in this country where we can have a conversation without always having to appeal to emotion. It's all about emotion, because like Joe just said, people are the left. We're willing to use our reason, our God-given reason, to dissect their arguments and to find solutions for things, but they're not. Because like you said, with the gaping holes in their arguments, and they are gaping, okay, even a little bit of truth just torpedoes all their arguments, then they fall on, why are you such a hater? Why do you hate people so much? Why do you hate gay people so much? Why can't you just let people be happy? That's their argument, because they don't have an argument. That's what it comes down to. That's it. Let's give a quick shout out. We got Heidi joining us. Roseanne. Hey, Vinny came in again. Vinny, I hope you like the second Bernie Sanders impersonation. Esteban's still with us. My baby's out there watching, and a lot of other people. So you're watching the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pacillo, joined as always by Joe Reciniello, and we're into it. We're into it right now. So I love this story, because here was a woman who used to be on Fox. Go ahead.
Well, this one's nauseating, but again, every Sunday night, 8 o'clock next week, we'll be streaming from HolyFaith Media, and we'll also be, posting our stuff on Facebook. So catch us, and we'll be posting the information to direct you there. But as Joe said, we're going to go to CNN, our favorite station. We have Allison Camerata. She's one of the morning show anchors. Basically, they were talking about this week something we addressed. Of course, we're ahead of them.
Well, we're way ahead of them.
Well, anyway,
and we know that they're on the sneak. We know that they're watching the front line with Joe and Joe.
But they were talking about the 2016 Indiana ruling, which basically said abortion cannot be based on race, sex, or disability. And this recently went to the Supreme Court. We covered this about 30 days ago. Anyway, they were talking about it this week with Allison. So basically, I'm going to give you the quote. Basically, she expressed visible shock that any parent would want to have a disabled child. Visible shock. So I'm going to give you the quote, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. She basically said, why? Why would you want a family to have a child with a severe disability? Basically saying we should abort that child. That should be a given. Why? Why would you want a child that has a severe disability?
Mm-hmm.
Once again, barbarous. It's not even hidden.
No.
Kill the child.
Right.
Kill the child.
That's the only solution. Death.
Disgusting.
Death is no
I
solution.
saw this and I wanted to vomit.
Right.
This is what Nazis did.
That's right.
And she's not even saying it at her kitchen table with her husband.
She's saying
it on national television. Why? Why would a family want to have a disabled child? Just kill it.
Right. Because that's the solution that the party of death
Disgusting.
offers.
And I'm going to tell you why. Because we live in a godless country. This country would never have tolerated that.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
50 years ago.
Right.
To have someone on national television say something like this.
That's right.
She would have been fired.
Right.
Disgusting.
Well, you brought up God. I was talking to our friend Jonathan Ross, before a couple hours ago, earlier today. He made a good point, and I wanted to get into it earlier when it comes to the Democrats. Okay, so for a second, we're going to get a little Catholic on you. Okay, where the bishops are so quick. There's a picture. You see the picture of the father and the daughter that washed up on the shore of the Rio Grande River. Okay, and there's a whole article about that, how that is impossible for the bodies to get. That was actually staged. Not that they didn't die. They died crossing the river, but the way their bodies were and the way they took the picture. Anyway, long story short, you're getting this virtue signaling from the United States bishops, okay, talking about this. They've come out and basically threatened. They've threatened politicians and people like us, lay Catholics, for supporting the border wall. And they threatened us with canonical action, which means, potentially like excommunication, all right, because we value our country and we want to have a secure border. But they don't say anything, all right, very few of them. They didn't say anything about, and don't say anything about Joe Biden, all right, and Dick Durbin out in Illinois, okay? They don't say anything. I'm going to guess Allison Camerata is an Italian Catholic.
Oh, there's no question.
Where are the bishops when it comes to her outrage, her outright outrage that a parent would want to give birth to a child who has an illness? How disgusting of you parents. Why would you want to bring a disabled child into the world? I don't know. Love? Yeah, it comes to the value of human life. My point is that, and Jonathan was right, this hypocrisy when it comes, not all, I want to be clear, I'm not bashing the bishops, okay? But as a whole, they're taking political sides. They want to be against Trump, okay?
By the way, Trump is the most like pro-life president in the history of this country since Roe v. Wade.
He's trying to fight to defund Planned Parenthood and everything else. But my point is that, now I know a couple bishops, thank God, they spoke about the case we talked about in England, okay, where the forced abortion, and they came out. But the United States bishops as a group, okay, they're railing against what's going on at the border. It's a humanitarian crisis. We have to love our neighbor. I want to say, listen, your eminences. We do love our neighbor. But we also love our country, and we think there's a problem there. And one of the solutions to that problem is a secure border. I will remind you, again, your eminences, that the border falls under my prudential judgment. See, I have that, okay? Joe has that. And I could judge the situation prudentially and come up with a just and moral conclusion.
And also, I think, can we do better as a country?
Probably. Absolutely.
Probably. However, let's blame both parties for that, who can't seem to get along, or let me rephrase it, won't. So let's get it together as a people and solve this problem, because to be honest with you, that was a horrendous thing to see. Horrible.
Right. But what's even more horrendous is the fact that thousands of babies die every day in America in Planned Parenthood abortuaries, okay, death chambers, and the bishops pay lip service to it. Yes, you need to speak out more. You want me to listen to you on immigration? Do you? Because I want to. You're my bishop. You're my cardinal. You're my priest. Okay? I want to listen to you. But you need to take moral leadership on abortion, on gay marriage. You need to do this. Your hypocrisy is blinding.
And also,
here.
Let's just talk about, like, just a general statement of this is, courage. All of us have to be courageous. I said this last week. Freedom is fought for every day. That means laying your skin on the line. You have to be courageous. You have to speak the truth, even if you're going to get penalized for it, even if you're going to make waves. Making waves is how things get done. That's what this show is about. That's why it's the front line. We're talking about things that might make people squirm a little bit. Good. Good. Because this is how things get done. We have to be courageous. We have to demand that our leaders are courageous. And if they're not, vote them out.
That's right.
Vote them out.
And you have every authority. You have every authority to tell the people that who identify as Catholic, who sit in those pews every Sunday, you have the authority to tell them that they cannot vote for the party of death. You absolutely can do it, and you don't do it. And on top of it, you attack people like us who want a secure border, who want legal immigration, all right? Just like bishops, your parents and your great-grandparents and your great-great-grandparents, all you Italian bishops, you Irish bishops, you German bishops, who came here legally, we want that same thing. We want a secure border. And we want you to be very clear on all these issues where you should be with us in the front line. Instead of supporting people like Father James Martin, you should be with us at the front line, fighting against the culture of death, fighting against the Antichrist culture, because that's what it is. Okay? But where are you? Where are you? You're talking about the border. I already know to love my neighbor, Your Eminence. I already know to love my neighbor. Jesus was very clear about that. What are we going to do about securing the border and loving our neighbor at the same time? All right? Why don't you come up with solutions for that? Anyway, I'm sorry, Joe, but it's disgusting. It's disgusting. It's bad enough as Catholic men we're on the hit list. Southern Poverty Law Center, where I'm sure we'll be on their hate list. Listen, I told you, as soon as you're on their hate list, Joe and I have hit the big time, baby. We're on the SPL. As soon as the ADL comes out against us, as soon as all the Human Rights Commission, all these people, when they come out and you see the front line with Joe and Joe on the hate list, guaranteed we've made it, baby. We're in the big time. We'd love for you bishops and your cardinals to join us at the front line because we're fighting for truth. That's what we've said from the very first show. We are boldly speaking the truth. We are trying to show some courage, knowing we could both lose our jobs for the things that we're saying. We'd like for you to join us, okay? You wear the red hat. We don't.
Amen. So let's go to our last segment of the evening. We're going to go to Ontario, Canada. This is another beauty. Again, this is not something that's covered by anyone, so that's why we cover it. This is basically a child service in this particular part of the world, basically that handles foster care. So they were interviewing a couple that had 3 children who wanted to then foster some other children because obviously they were blessed and they wanted to share, you know, their good life with the child that maybe did not have as much. Anyway, so they're interviewing those particular parents, and during the interview, this is the quote the social worker asked this couple, whether their church still believes in some of the more outdated parts of the Bible.
Outdated.
So they, in, you know, being honest, good people, they say to the social worker, well, we believe in all parts of the Bible.
No
They
good.
get rejected.
Yep.
They said, basically, this was the quote, we feel that the policies of our agency do not appear to fit with your values and beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously they pursued this and they wanted to get an idea of what are you talking about values and beliefs. And this was basically the explanation was the anti-oppressive policy that conflicts with homosexual behavior. So years ago, if you went, again, as Joe and I have said, we are Catholic, but, you know, listen, people have other religions, you know. If you went to church, you believed in God, you know, you lived by the golden rule, you know, took seriously the 10 Commandments, that was a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's not. And not only isn't it not, you're penalized.
You're the enemy now.
You're the enemy because you believe in the outdated parts of the Bible.
Right. Well, that's Again, but
I don't know what else.
But what are the parts of the Bible? What are the parts of the Bible that they consider to be outdated? Anything in the Bible that talks about the moral law, the natural law, about order, God being order. Okay, that bodies are ordered, sexuality is ordered. It is ordered by God and nature. Okay, and that you live within this order. It's very simple. Okay, and yes, that is how it was on that order. By the way, that Western civilization was built. Okay, so when you take something that is a disorder, all right, and you try to turn it into something that's natural, okay, then this is the result. Especially if you're promoting that. And again, there's always a political agenda behind it. I want to make clear to all the homosexuals out there, they don't love you. Don't pretend or don't be duped into thinking that people like these Canadian idiots love you, because they don't. We actually love you, whether you believe that or not. But the point is, when your goal is, like we said earlier today, if you want to have a society where you have complete political control, remember, we've talked about it before, the left wants power for power's sake. They don't want power to do things that are good. They want power for power's sake, so that they take control over the economy, over the culture, over everything else. You need to create people who don't value the moral law, who don't value the natural law, who don't even know what it is. How do you get that? Now, we get it in church because we hear scripture in church every week.
You got it from your parents.
But you got it from your parents, okay? And yes, through the church, in the case of Roman Catholicism, through the church, you got it by going to Mass. You heard the lessons, you heard the scripture being read, you heard the lessons of the priest, you got the idea of what's right and wrong, and that's the way you lived your life, okay? And that's the way you go about it. And you have respect for these things. It was inculcated in you from the time that you were young. You have to have respect for these things. You're dealing with a political movement, okay, that's been around a very long time, who has no respect for these things. The left doesn't respect the moral law. They don't respect. They kill babies in the womb. What respect could they have for the
progressive values?
Right. But what are they?
I don't know.
That's my point. It's like when they say we have progressive values. Is killing babies a progressive value? Is the destruction of the family, all right, as one man, one woman, and children, is that a progressive value? In other words, that you expect that we're just going to what? Sit back and just let you do whatever you want? You're just going to be able
Sadly, too many people do, and they vote. They don't think. That's the sad part.
Right.
They just vote right down the line. These are people that were raised just like us. You have to think about the ramifications of this. Look around you. I say this to people all the time. I say this to my wife all the time. Look out the window. Is the world's way working?
No.
It's not.
And we're hanging on. I mean, I would say this, okay? Joe has a life. I have a life, okay? And we were living our lives up until we were inspired by a good man who was also a Catholic priest to do this show. Took some time to put it together and to figure out what we were going to do. But we're hanging on by a thread. And it's guys like us, not because we're the most courageous men in the world, because we're not, okay? But we're doing this. And we're joining others because there's some people who just, they don't see it. Not because they don't have the intelligence, okay? I think they're lacking information. They may be getting their news from places that, yes, like MSNBC and CNN, that are pushing this agenda. But social media, especially if YouTube and Facebook and the rest of them, if they would remain open platforms instead of editorial boards and censoring conservative and, yes, controversial ideas, that it's going to be venues like this that we could take back the culture by joining our voices with others, so that those people who might, again, we listen to. That's how we learn, all right? That's how we learned in life. We listen, and then we digest those ideas, then we have come up with ideas of our own. That's what a lot of people do. But if the message isn't getting out there, that's the problem.
But it's also people have gone into their tribes. You have to have an open mind and an open heart. You have to listen. Listen to people. I'll listen to you, to be honest with you. But then, to be honest with you, you're going to have to listen to me. You know, and we have to have this dialogue. You have to have an open mind. Too many people go into the voting booth. People who I grew up with, people who grew up in hardworking families, blue-collar families in southern Bergen County, New Jersey. They go to work, they come home, they have their kids, and they just vote. Boom, 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 for the party of death. And yes, the Democratic Party is the party of death. It is the party of death. If you believe in God You cannot, in good conscience, vote for a Democrat right now.
Yeah.
And that has to be stated.
Well, but I know you were about to put the finer point on it, but why? Because God is order. Okay, and yes, we have to, and we again, Western civilization was built on this. Not the Roman Empire, not the Greeks, not the Chinese, not the Indians. Okay, Indians. Okay, Western civilization was built on that recognition. Okay, of the moral order, the social order, and the natural law for 2,000 years. You mentioned God. Well, you lament that we're not turning to God, but what is the left constantly convincing that this culture anyway of? God doesn't even exist.
Right and wrong doesn't exist.
I heard a guy say to me, said flat out, this was a couple of years ago, said flat out, well, where do rights come from anyway? So supposed God, you're talking about he sends them down from heaven? No, rights are given by government and rights are going to be taken away by government.
Wait till he's
that guy's dangerous.
Wait till he's on his deathbed crapping his pants.
Well, you want to know something? I hope he wakes up.
Wait till when you have nowhere to go. And I hope he does, listen, I'm not going to change your mind. All I'm saying is there's basic things that are right and wrong. We're not going to agree on everything. All I'm inviting you to do is open your mind and open your heart. Listen, a lot of these things that we're saying can happen to you. They can happen to you.
And they will. But
and
they will. They will happen to you.
The beautiful thing about this country is we have the ability to pick our leaders. And sadly, we're choosing people on both sides of the aisle, frankly, that aren't doing us any good.
And they don't have our best interests at heart.
And they do not.
And get it straight, you conservative-minded people out there, okay? We're free marketeers. I believe in the free market. I think the free market, like many other people have said, has lifted more people out of poverty than any other economic system the world has ever seen. But the free market cannot be divorced from the moral law either. And conservatives seem to want to have this laissez-faire attitude towards the economy where we can't do anything and no moral law applies there. That's a problem too in this country. That's a big problem, okay? And we need to address those things. Because like I said earlier, if you got a lot of these people together in a room, your hard leftists and your dyed-in-the-wool Chamber of Commerce conservative, they'll come to an agreement. And you know who'll get crushed in that agreement? We will. We will, okay? The left will sell the workers right down the river. Okay, and they'll do that for abortion, gay marriage, and all the big issues that we're talking about. Again, we're big issue conservatives. Okay, they'll sell us right down the river on everything. So when you want to get a good wage, you'll get sold out on that. When you want to fight against abortion and all these other atrocities, you'll get sold out on that. And they'll make a political deal, and they'll all just sit back and laugh at the rest of us. This is what we're fighting against. We are fighting against this lack of, I want to use the word logos. We're fighting against this we're a country that's falling deeper and deeper into an area where there is no recognition of the moral law, of traditional morality, or what would be called Judeo-Christian morality, the values of the Bible that you were just talking about.
And that's why the country is in trouble. I've been saying this forever. We could point to reasons why there's basically opioid problems with young kids, murders in schools. We don't know what's right and wrong anymore. We have asked God to leave our society. And God is a gentleman, and he did. We have to invite him back. Why? Because the country was founded upon a principle. And that principle was this: in God we trust. And that's our principle.
That's right.
We do. That's how I live. I live my life that way. And I'm telling you, it works.
I want to real quickly and kind of end the show this way. Remember this from a more hopeful and optimistic point of view, because I know we both could get very angry at a lot of these things. God is the author of human history. I don't know why. I don't know why he allows things to happen. God is the author of human history. And at the end of the day, okay, the truth, all right, because the true, the good, and the beautiful are all synonymous, will win. Will win. But that doesn't mean that we don't fight. That doesn't mean that he's not calling on us to step up. Step up and make your voices heard. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. At the end of the day, they can't take your soul. okay? They can take your life. They cannot take your soul, okay? And if we stand up for the truth, we can take this culture back. And as we've always said, if we take the culture back, we will take the politics back. We'll take the country back. And we will beat back this leftist scourge. Abortion will end. Family will be restored, okay? And a whole host of other graces and blessings from Almighty God will be bestowed on us. Okay?
Apple pie and baseball, baby.
But we have to.
It's
fight.
all about it.
We are at the front line. We will say it over and over again. Joe and I. All right. You have joined us at the front line, and we're trying to encourage others to come into the breach with us. And I'll tell you another thing too. My father always said, my earthly father, Junior. He always used to say, when I was a kid, I used to remember his biggest criticism of me was, you got a big mouth. And it meant something, all right? I didn't know what it meant then because I've used my big mouth my entire life to say some really nonsensical things. I now understand that my father was telling the truth. But now I'm using my big mouth to say that same truth.
And you should too.
That's right. Let's all have a big mouth. Let's be the annoying 5-year-old who keeps going like this to the teacher saying, teacher, I don't understand why you're saying what you're saying. And let's annoy them to death. Okay, and let's keep annoying them. Anyway,
remember, our conversation is your conversation, and it's going on everywhere.
It's going on everywhere. Remember again, Frontline Joe and Joe Pacillo, Joe Reciniello. We stream live on Facebook tonight. Next week, Joe, we're on YouTube live.
Yes, with HolyFaith Media.
HolyFaith Media is going to be streaming live to their 20,000 or so subscribers, and we want to thank Jonathan Ross again for giving us that platform. So we're going to try to reach a wider audience. However, you know who brought us to the dance? All of our Facebook friends. Please remember, and Joe will post this during the week, that will be on YouTube where you can comment. It's the same system where you can comment and chime in and everything else and say hi to us. And then we will post that video once it's done. It'll be on YouTube and it'll be on Facebook. In the meantime, let's keep up the fight.
Absolutely. And see you next week. Thanks for joining. Thanks for your support.
Thank you.
Peace.
Peace.